What did the Earth look like during the Pangea era? Dear traveler, hello. Today, we tread the traces of a vanished world. From scorching deserts to immense swamps, colossal mountain ranges to vast equatorial forests, Pangea stretched like an endless continent. A unique realm, vast, indomitable, whose existence, as grand as it was, lasted only a moment on the timeline. But why did this supercontinent break apart? But before setting off for a new adventure, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to not miss anything. Thank you, and bon voyage. About 380 million years ago, long before the formation of the supercontinent Pangea, the Earth presented a very different face. The continents were scattered like pieces of a vast moving puzzle. To the south stretched Gondwana, while to the north was Laurussia, formed from Laurentia, Baltica, and Avalonia. Further east, there were additions like Siberia, Kazakhstan, and the blocks attached to the regions of North and South China. The planet was then dominated by oceans covering almost the entire globe. Panthalassa formed an immense expanse, encircled by subduction zones forming long volcanic arcs. There were also the Iapetus Ocean, already reduced, and the Rhyates Ocean, in decline under the push of Gondwana and Laurussia. Further east, the Paleotethys extended broadly. As the plates approached, the Rhyic Ocean disappeared, preluding the birth of an even vaster supercontinent. At the end of the Devonian and the start of the Carboniferous, plate tectonics continually shaped the Earth. Mantle currents pushed the continents, causing subductions along Panthalassa, forming true volcanic garlands. At the same time, the convergence of Gondwana and Laurussia gradually closed the Rhyic Ocean, bringing their shores closer. Small continents like Armorica, the Bohemian Massif, or the Iberian Apulian terrains were accreting to these blocks. This process of accretion, discreetly but powerfully, contributed to the building of future mountain ranges. Meanwhile, marine life rivaled with geological intensity. In the warm, shallow waters, Devonian reefs thrived thanks to various building organisms. Stromatoporoids, calcified sponges, formed a solid framework that housed multiple species. Rugose corals and tabulate corals shared the space. The former erected vertical partitions, while the latter stacked thin horizontal walls like small plates. Together, these reefs provided a refuge and hunting ground for a multitude of animals, from invertebrates to large predators. In these seas reigned Dunkleosteus, a formidable armored fish. Its skull and forebody were covered with massive bony plates. Its jaws, equipped with sharp blades, could crush its prey with extraordinary power. Although it disappeared at the end of the Devonian, it embodies the diversity and ferocity of marine fauna, where predation and competition guided evolution. At this time, the first tetrapods, such as Acanthostega and Ichthyostega, initiated the transition between lobe-finned fish and terrestrial vertebrates. Acanthostega already had fingers, though still dependent on water. Ichthyostega, more robust, could probably move a bit better out of the water. These hybrid forms illustrate how life cautiously explored terrestrial environments while remaining tied to wet areas. In these emerging lands, vegetation played a decisive role. Vast forests of lycophytes and pteridophytes rose in marshy areas. Some lycophytes resembled real trees, much larger than modern ferns. Pteridophytes comprised primitive ferns that proliferated thanks to their spores spread in the moisture. As they decomposed, these plants stabilized the soils and gradually enriched the land with organic sediments. The climate, warm and stable, favored the rapid growth of vegetation and lush ecosystems. In many tropical regions, temperatures exceeded 20 degrees Celsius. These marshy conditions nourished dense forests, whose photosynthesis enriched the air with oxygen while trapping carbon dioxide. Thus, plants not only shaped the landscapes, but also transformed the climate over the long term. This seemingly stable period, nevertheless, experienced marine and climatic variations that disrupted biodiversity. At the end of the Devonian, Several crises led to selective extinctions, but at the start of the Carboniferous, corals, placoderms, and giant lycophytes continued to colonize new environments. The tetrapods ventured to the shores, and the vast vegetation swamps, by fossilizing, would give rise to the coal seams, witnesses to an exceptional organic accumulation. On the tectonic level, the period saw the gradual fusion of microcontinents. When an oceanic plate plunged beneath a continental plate, it generated volcanic arcs and budding reliefs. These fragments accreted little by little to Gondwana or Laurussia. Armorica, integrated into Europe, bears witness to this tumultuous history, just like the Bohemian Massif in the center of the current continent. With each collision, immense rock masses were broken and transformed, triggering new magmatism that constantly reshaped geography. The closing of the Reich Ocean was one of the major events leading to the Variscan chain between 360 and 300 million years ago. It marks the progressive welding of several continental blocks to Laurussia, which had already formed by the fusion of Laurentia and Baltica. Over the course of tectonic movements, fragments like Armorica and Bohemia were attached to it before Gondwana juxtaposed. This complex process shaped a mountain range that extended from Ireland and the Iberian Peninsula to Bohemia and the Balkans. In the Pennsylvanian, the second half of the Carboniferous, the Variscan region was dominated by vast marshes where lush vegetation accumulated. Large lycophytes like Lepidodendron and Sigillaria, several tens of meters high, coexisted with calamites, similar to modern horsetails, and the tree ferns Ceronius. In these humid environments, poor in oxygen, decomposition remained incomplete. Gradually, this biomass transformed into thick coal layers, which would later be found at the heart of industrial basins, fueling the industrial boom. In these lush ecosystems, the fauna was equally spectacular. Arthropleura, a giant millipede, could exceed 2 meters and roamed the spongy ground of Carboniferous forests. Also present was Meganeura, a giant dragonfly whose wingspan reached nearly a meter. This exceptional size is explained by an oxygen-rich atmosphere, facilitating the respiration of invertebrates. Alongside them, primitive tetrapods explored the land. The first amniotes, such as Hylonomus and Paleothyrus, laying eggs with protective shells, marked the decisive adaptation that allowed vertebrates to permanently conquer terrestrial environments. The closing of the Reich and the collisions that built the Variscan belt illustrate the incessant dynamics of our planet. Beneath our feet, the plates shape reliefs and mountains, remodeling the crust in depth before projecting it to the surface in the form of sheets and faults. The landscapes of the Carboniferous, with their giant forests and coal swamps, were a key moment in evolution, promoting the diversification of life. The coal deposits from these environments constitute an energy legacy that marked industrial history and continues to influence our world. The Variscan imprint remains visible, inscribed in our current landscapes. Between 330 and 300 million years, North America experienced a major episode. This was the formation of the Alleghanian-Ouachita Marathon chain. Under the effect of powerful tectonic forces, ancient continents were welded together, creating a relief that stretched from the northeastern United States to Texas. The collision between Gondwana in the south and Laurussia in the north significantly deformed the Earth's crust and generated mountains, including the Appalachians, current vestiges in the building of Pangaea. The suture between Laurussia and Gondwana is manifested by a wide zone of deformations, especially marking the eastern United States. The key episode is the Alleghanian orogeny, born of their collision. Here, the Earth's crust was literally welded. Ancient rocks were compressed, folded, and then metamorphosed. In the Appalachians, one can still distinguish powerful formations of schists and gneisses resulting from this upheaval, although they have been largely leveled by erosion. This geological scar, still visible, retains the memory of the colossal forces that contributed to the building of Pangaea. While the geological upheavals of this period are often highlighted, terrestrial fauna was evolving just as much. The temnospondyli, primitive amphibians represented by Ariops, were massive, with robust bodies adapted to semi-aquatic life. The first pelycosaurs also appeared, such as Ophiocodon, a close ancestor of mammals, recognizable by their long dorsal spines. Finally, the diadectomorphs were among the first large terrestrial herbivores. Their powerful skeletons and specialized jaws allowed them to crush vegetation, signaling a new stage in the diversification of vertebrates. At this time, terrestrial ecosystems were rapidly diversifying. Temnospondyli, like Ariops, could reach 2 meters, making them formidable predators. Ophiocodon, more slender, led a more terrestrial life and fed on small animals. Diadectes, for its part, lived in alluvial plains and swampy forests, rich in vegetation. This coexistence illustrates the emergence of varied ecological niches, where each species exploited different resources to ensure its survival. The term temnospondyli comes from the particular structure of their vertebrae, segmented by transverse sutures, a detail that sheds light on the diversity of early amphibians. Among pelycosaurs, attention is drawn to the dorsal sail of certain species, although Ophiocodon developed it less prominently. As for Diadectes, its teeth suggest an early specialization for crushing hard plants. These adaptations reveal a world in transition, where terrestrial ecosystems were rapidly diversifying and paving the way for new evolutionary radiations. This pivotal moment marks an essential stage in the history of life. The Alleghanian Ouachita Marathon chain illustrates the complexity of North American tectonics. Its now eroded reliefs reveal the imprint of a massive collision that folded and metamorphosed ancient rocks. The foreland basins bear the trace of sedimentation linked to glacial-eustatic variations. On solid ground, the rise of vertebrates like Ariops, Ophiocodon, and Diadectes shows a life already adapted to varied environments. This episode heralds the major future stages of terrestrial evolution. Between 320 and 300 million years ago, a major transformation took place in Russia and Eastern Europe. We are talking here about the Ural Mountains rising, forming the northern lock of Pangaea. This supercontinent then grouped together most of the emerged lands before their future fragmentation. At that time, several plates converged. Baltica covered northern Europe, as well as the Kazakhstan and Siberian blocks. Their convergence led to the gradual closure of the Uralian Ocean, located at the border of these entities. When this ocean disappeared, the Uralian mountain belt stretched from the Arctic to the Caspian Sea, forming a vast mountain cordon. This geological barrier became a key element in the architecture of Pangaea and world tectonic history. Mountain formation, or orogeny, results from the collision between tectonic plates. In the case of the Urals, Baltica, Kazakhstan, and Siberia collided, deforming and elevating the Earth's crust. These contacts leave sutures, geological scars, where ophiolites, fragments of ancient oceanic crust, sometimes crop out in the reliefs. Their presence attests that subduction occurred. This process fueled the building of the Ural Mountains and sealed the union of Baltica with the Kazakhstan and Siberian blocks. To understand subduction, one can imagine it as a dense oceanic plate tilting beneath a lighter plate and sinking into the depths of the Earth. Composed of heavy minerals, it naturally plunges under the continental crust. As it descends, it heats up and generates magma, which can rise and form new rocks on the surface. During the closure of the Uralian Ocean, some portions of maritime crust found themselves trapped between continents. They gave rise to accreted arcs, former volcanic or sedimentary arcs now welded to the edges of Baltica or Siberia. In the Urals, transpressive faults appear when two crustal blocks come together while sliding past each other. This compression-slip combination creates a complex tectonic setting, with folds, thrusts, and faults deforming the layers. The rocks, folded like a pushed carpet, form imposing reliefs. These movements largely explain the current distribution of structures and the arrangement of the blocks. As the Urals rise, the Russian Carboniferous plateaus, witnessed the flourishing of immense forests of chordates, primitive trees akin to the ancestors of conifers. Their long, ribbon-like leaves formed a dense vegetation cover in a humid and temperate climate. Alongside them thrived seed ferns like Calypteris, capable of reproducing with small seeds rather than spores. This innovation favored the survival of embryos in changing environments. These lush ecosystems accumulated considerable plant mass, whose slow burial would later give rise to thick coal deposits. Among the fauna of the Russian Carboniferous plateaus is Divinosaurus, a predatory amphibian with a massive skull and elongated body. Its robust limbs allowed it to move on land while still depending on water for reproduction. Like most amphibians of the time, its fragile eggs required moist environments. Divinosaurus frequented rivers and marshes, where it hunted both aquatic and terrestrial prey. In this vibrant setting, the food chain relied on a great diversity of plants, giant insects, and vertebrates, all adapted to a still mild but evolving climate. On the slopes of the Urals, one can also observe thrust sheets. These are immense masses of rocks displaced over tens of kilometers due to the collision. They stack marine sediments, volcanic rocks, and continental fragments on already solidified assemblages. Their study is delicate, as it requires determining the origin of each element, basement, island arc, or ocean floor, to understand their sequence. By reconstructing these successive displacements, geologists managed to trace the complex history of Uralian orogeny. Such episodes of convergence are not rare. Indeed, the Earth has often seen the rise of great mountain ranges. But the Urals hold a particular place in the history of Pangaea. By locking the Baltica Plate with the Siberian block, it seals the northern junction of the supercontinent. At the same time, other orogenies occur in the south, contributing to the global unification. This lock is not just a tectonic episode. It also influences sedimentary basins, ecosystem distribution, and prepares for the paleoclimatic changes that will mark the subsequent history of the Earth. The uplift of the Urals modifies regional atmospheric circulation and rainfall patterns. The slopes exposed to humid flows become rich in forests and rivers, while the other side remains drier. This contrast stimulates habitat diversity. On the Russian Carboniferous plateaus, tectonic variations create marshes, forming thick peat deposits, future coal deposits. This relief durably shapes the ecological balance, multiplying niches for fauna and flora. We are now at the end of a long phase of tectonic convergence between 335 and 299 million years ago. The Earth's plates are assembling to form Pangaea. This configuration, known as Pangaea A, results from paleomagnetic measurements recorded in ancient rocks. It seals the disappearance of the Reyes and Iapetus oceans, reduced to a residual state, while the Paleotethys, a vast eastern inland sea, still retains a major role. By now, the emerged lands form a single block, surrounded by Panthalassa, the giant ocean covering almost the entire planet. The mantle convection drives the plates into subductions and collisions. As they close, the oceanic basins weld Laurussia and Gondwana into a massive entity. In the west, the rake slowly closes, while the Iapetus almost entirely disappears. The Paleotethys still exists between future Eurasian and Gondwanian masses. New faults open to the east of Gondwana, initiating the Neotethys. Modest at first, this opening is already preparing the future breakup of Pangaea. At the heart of the system, Panthalassa covers almost the entire oceanic surface. A true thermal regulator, it influences the climate of both the margins and the interior of Pangaea. Its free-flowing currents redistribute heat and moisture. The coasts experience temperate conditions, while the interior remains arid and subject to strong seasonal variations. Almost entirely surrounding the supercontinent, Panthalassa still connects a few residual basins. Its marine ecosystems, from shores to the abyss, leave traces of intense biological and oceanic activity in the sediments. Within Pangaea, A vast internal mountain range connects the Appalachians of North America, the Verisides of Europe, and the Mauritanides of West Africa. Further south, the Anti-Atlas and Paleozoic Atlas are added, while the Urals close off the system to the east. These mountains result from repeated collisions between continental blocks, leaving folds, faults, and overthrusts. The rocks bear traces of subduction and metamorphism, and in places, ophiolites, remnants of ancient ocean floors, still outcrop. This chain gives Pangaea a true mineral backbone. Scientists use paleomagnetism to reconstruct past geography. The fossilized magnetic orientation in minerals reveals the latitude of a crust at the time of its formation. Combined with measurements from multiple sites, this technique shows the convergence of Gondwana and Laurussia to form Pangaea A. Other clues, such as uranium lead dating of zircons or argon-argon dating of certain minerals, refine the chronology. Around 299 million years ago, collisions closed the last marine passages. The sea structure takes shape, while the paleotethys remains on the sidelines, and the continental unity is nearly achieved. During this period, the paleotethys plays a central role between Gondwana and the Asian blocks. It still constitutes a vast marine domain, even though the plates threaten its existence. Later, back arc extension on the edge of Gondwana will initiate the opening of the neotethys, but this process remains subtle. Pangaea is now almost entirely encircled by Panthalassa, while keeping an opening to the east. This configuration already influences climate, atmospheric circulation, and biodiversity. As for Iapetus, it reduces to small extents, sealing the end of an ancient oceanic cycle. In the late Carboniferous, Earth undergoes a major transformation. The atmosphere changes profoundly, influencing terrestrial and marine ecosystems. Dense forests trap significant amounts of carbon, altering the composition of the air. This unique context combines a high oxygen level with episodic glaciations. We will explore how the abundance of oxygen, the decrease in carbon dioxide, and the glacial cycles of Gondwana shape the planet, as well as the Pangaean megamonsoon and its environmental impact. During this period, the atmosphere reaches an exceptional oxygen level estimated between 28 and 35% compared to 21% today. This increase comes from the vast forests of lycophytes, ferns, and primitive plants, whose photosynthesis releases a lot of oxygen. A significant portion of the organic matter then accumulates in marshes, trapping the carbon instead of releasing it as CO2. This context favors the rise of giant arthropods, dragonflies several dozen centimeters wide, oversized millipedes dependent on this enriched air. These undecomposed plant deposits will later form the large coal deposits. Cyclothems, alternations of shales, sandstones, and coals, preserve the memory of these cycles. Thus, the high oxygen content illustrates the crucial role of forests and sedimentation in planetary regulation. Meanwhile, Gondwana experiences vast glacial episodes. At times, immense ice caps cover southern Africa, Australia, and Antarctica, transforming these lands into ice deserts. These glaciations, situated between the end of the Carboniferous and the beginning of the Permian, mainly result from the continent's position in the southern hemisphere and atmospheric dynamics, which accumulate snow and ice at high latitudes. Variations in Earth's orbit and axial tilt reinforce these cold-hot cycles, spread over 100,000 to 400,000 years. During cold phases, the advance of glaciers lowers sea levels, drying out coastal areas. When they melt, the sea rises and floods the plateaus. These fluctuations require constant adaptation from plants and animals, contracting equatorial forests or almost eliminating vegetation in polar zones. They also dictate sedimentation patterns. Marine and continental layers stack in glacial-eustatic sequences. Finally, the expansion of ice contributes to the lowering of atmospheric CO2 by rock weathering and carbon trapping in sediments. Glacial striations, tills, and deposits found on the ancient continents of Gondwana confirm these major climatic episodes. The Pangaean megamonsoon illustrates the impact of continental distribution on the atmosphere. When lands join, the thermal gap between coasts and the interior becomes enormous. In summer, the center of Pangaea heats up significantly. Warm air rises and creates a low pressure that draws moisture from the oceans. Vapor-laden winds bring heavy rains to the margins, while the interior remains arid. Seasons alternate between intense storms and droughts. Coastal forests, swamps, and rivers undergo floods and low waters, forcing species to adapt. The monsoon also transports significant sediments, burying organic matter and trapping carbon. This extreme regime of the late Carboniferous already foreshadows the drier conditions of the Permian. During the Pennsylvanian, between 323 and 299 million years ago, immense swamps stretched near the equator. Bordered by humid forests, these water-saturated environments provide an ideal setting for dense vegetation, thriving in often flooded areas. Organic accumulation is massive there. The buried and compacted peat would later form major coal deposits, hence the name coal swamps. To understand these environments, one must examine the flora that thrived there, the fauna that inhabited them, and the slow sedimentation that gave rise to future coals. At the heart of these swampy ecosystems thrive arborescent lycophytes, including lepidodendron, lepidophlöyos, and sigillaria. These vascular plants, appearing early in Earth's history, formed true giants, reaching over 30 meters. Their peculiar roots, called stigmaries, once fossilized, supported long, spirally arranged leaves. Lepidodendron and lepidophlöyos were distinguished by diamond-shaped bark patterns, while sigillaria showed vertical and columnar markings. Adapted to waterlogged soils, these plants grew rapidly under a warm and humid climate, with equatorial temperatures around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Another key plant group of the coal swamps is the giant sphenopsids, notably the calamites. These vascular plants, relatives of modern horsetails, were distinguished by their hollow, segmented stems adorned with regular whorls. During the Pennsylvanian, they reached several meters, forming true trees on the swamp edges. Their jointed trunks, capable of storing sap, ensured stability in loose or flooded soils. Dense populations of calamites filtered light and created a dark undergrowth. Alongside lycophytes and sphenopsids, large tree ferns like Ceronius, as well as pteridosperms, also thrived. Ceronius often exceeded 10 meters and featured a stipe formed of interlaced root and stem bundles, covered with aerial roots. Its large fronds, fan-like at the top, resembled modern palms. Pteridosperms, such as Medulosa, looked like ferns but reproduced by seeds, using ovules and pollen. Their massive fronds reinforced the thick shade of the coal swamps. In this stifling tropical climate, the atmosphere contained more oxygen than today. This richness favored gigantism in some insects, better fed with air. The swamp forests housed a primitive winged fauna. Paleotic Pteroptera, the first insects with wings, roamed the canopies searching for spores and small prey. Others, akin to crickets, could already produce sounds by vibrating their wings, but the most impressive were the dragonfly-like insects, including Meganeura, a formidable predator with a wingspan reaching 75 centimeters. Alongside arthropods, the marshes also housed vertebrates. Primitive tetrapods, especially temnospondyls like Proterogyrinus, resembled large amphibians with elongated bodies and broad limbs, adapted to swimming as well as moving in the mud. They likely fed on fish and insects, hunting in still waters. The warm and humid climate favored their reproduction. They laid eggs in small ponds, where the larvae grew before moving to dry land. Among the tetrapods of these marshes also appeared the first amniotes, with Hylonomus being the emblematic example. These vertebrates are distinguished by the amnion, a membrane that protects the embryo and allows its development out of water. Hylonomus, a small animal resembling a lizard, already heralded the lineage that would lead to reptiles, then mammals and birds. In the dampness of the coal swamps, this terrestrial reproduction offered a clear advantage. Indeed, these animals could lay eggs on drier soils or on plant debris while feeding on the abundant insects and small invertebrates. All this biological richness is intimately connected to the sedimentary cycle. Researchers talk about cyclothems to describe the sequences of coal, shales, and sands that repeat. Each sequence reflects the alternation between flooding periods and phases of exposure. During floods, vegetation accumulates and decomposes in oxygen-poor environments, forming peat. Compacted over time and pressure, it becomes coal. When the water recedes, coarser sediments like sands and silts are deposited. Studying these alternations allows geologists to trace glacial-eustatic cycles related to sea level variations caused by the expansion and melting of continental ice. In these swamps, arboreal lycophytes developed particular roots called stigmarian roots once fossilized. They are recognized by their spirally arranged root canals and surface scars, traces of old secondary roots. This system ensured anchorage of these giant plants in spongy soils, rich in organic matter, while facilitating water and nutrient absorption. Fossilized stigmarian roots today serve as indicators to identify the ancient level of the soil and the presence of peat strata. These marshes also contain particular soils, called gleified paleosols. They are formed in low oxygen conditions when water stagnates for long periods. Gley refers to a water-saturated soil where minerals transform. Iron, for example, reduces and takes on a bluish-gray hue rather than the usual red of well-drained soils. These soils testify to the almost permanent humidity of the productive zones of the Pennsylvanian. They are frequently found around coal seams, evidence of water level variations between peat forests and continental deposits. Their study sheds light on environmental changes and the global distribution of coal ecosystems. Imagining these coal marshes, one perceives a dark canopy, stiflingly hot, vibrating with the buzzing of immense insects and the croaking of amphibians near the water. The tentacle-like roots of sigillaria and lepidodendron anchor into the waterlogged soil, while the slender calamites line the banks and the ceronious ferns unfurl their vast fronds. Dead trunks sink into the peat and decompose slowly, nourishing future coal layers. In these cavities, small amniotes like Hylonomus lay eggs sheltered from aquatic predators such as Proterogyrinus. This plant and animal world offers astonishing diversity, despite the clumsy movements of amphibians out of water. Over time, each rise or fall of the waters deposits new strata. The marshland becomes drier, then gets flooded again. Fine clays, shales, and sands pile up due to river deposits. Studying these sequences makes it possible to distinguish the aging of the marshland from phases of submersion. This sedimentary series constitutes a valuable record. The coals sometimes retain plant cuticles revealing the flora. The shales trap insects and vertebrates, while the coarse sands preserve traces of floods or tropical storms capable of tearing out and carrying away immense trunks. Today, the study of coal seams or outcrops allows geologists and paleontologists to gradually reconstruct the universe of coal swamps. Fossils of roots, bark, trunks, leaves, or insects testify to the richness of the Pennsylvanian. Atmospheric gas levels, continental distribution, climate, and peat accumulation intertwine to create these unique environments. In an oxygen-rich atmosphere, the photosynthesis of giant plants amplifies the entire ecological chain, allowing oversized ferns and arthropods to thrive in dense and impenetrable forests. In the lower Permian or Ciceralian, from 299 to 273 million years ago, the Earth undergoes a major transformation in its landscapes and climate. Until then, vast swamps covered Euramerica, uniting Europe and North America. These lush forests housed giant ferns and tree-like plants in a warm and humid environment. But the climate changes and the marshlands wither, replaced by drier and more open environments. This collapse of tropical swamps alters ecosystem distribution. The humid belts migrate or shrink, while tectonics, by bringing lands together, modifies precipitation and atmospheric circulation on a planetary scale. In this drier landscape, the flora changes radically. Voltzian conifers like Walchia become dominant. Resembling modern conifers, they adapted with their fine leaves and ability to retain water, an asset in an arid climate. The first ginkgo phytes, ancestors of Ginkgo biloba, also appear, recognizable by their fan-shaped leaves. Chordates, seed plants that resemble primitive conifers, reach several meters and limited water loss with their elongated leaves. On Gondwana, other species thrived. Among them are the glossopterids, Glossopteris, and Gangamopterus, equipped with deep roots and foliar structures adapted to climatic variations. Their fossils are essential markers today for reconstructing the position of continents. With the collapse of tropical swamps, the fauna experiences profound upheavals. The era sees the rise of pelycosaurs, terrestrial vertebrates with a semi-reptilian appearance, famous for their dorsal sails. Older than dinosaurs, they belong to the lineage preceding the first therapsids, ancestors of mammals. Among them, Dimetrodon remains iconic. Its tall crest, made of bony spines covered with skin, likely served to regulate temperature. Its differentiated teeth, with pronounced canines and cutting blades, make it a formidable predator of the parched Permian lands. More modest forms like Sphenacodon shared a similar morphology, but with a much less developed sail. Besides pelycosaurs, other remarkable animals populated the Permian, notably the temnospondyls, large amphibians with massive, elongated bodies. One of the most iconic is Diplocaulus, recognizable by its boomerang-shaped head, extended with backward horns. These creatures inhabited rivers, marshes, and lakes, but the scarcity of wet areas limited their distribution. Diplocaulus was likely a discreet predator, hunting small fish and invertebrates while seeking refuge in persistent water pockets. Its enlarged head may have enhanced buoyancy or served as a defense, although its exact role remains debated. The transition to a more arid climate in the lower Permian results from several factors. The formation of Pangaea concentrated the landmasses into a massive continent whose interior, far from the coasts, became dry and little influenced by ocean currents. Scorching summers and harsh winters disrupted the balance of the former tropical swamps. The gradual disappearance of humid forests reduced the ambient humidity and altered the air composition, with vegetation playing a key role in atmospheric regulation. This upheaval favored the spread of desert areas, forcing some species to migrate, while others, more resistant to drought, colonized these new environments. The forests, now reduced, were concentrated near water sources or in regions receiving enough rain to support vegetation. Voltzian conifers thrived better than the ancient giant ferns. The nascent ginkgophytes and chordates occupied intermediate environments, moist part of the year. On Gondwana, glossopterids flourished thanks to the seasonal cycles of rain and drought. These landscapes mixed sparse woodlands, deep rivers, and sandy dunes, where plants deployed various strategies to survive water stress. For animals, access to water became more difficult. Amphibians, such as those related to Diplocaulus, no longer found enough marshes to breed, their life cycle depending on moist environments. Many disappeared, with only a few species managing to maintain viable populations. Pelycosaurs, better adapted to land due to resilient skin and a varied diet, thrived more. In the still lush riparian zones, they hunted animals that came to drink or fed on vegetation. Their large dorsal sails facilitated thermoregulation, an asset against temperature swings that could exceed several tens of degrees between day and night. In this context, only animals capable of withstanding drought, finding food, and regulating their temperature had a decisive advantage. Dimetrodon probably dominated the dried-out plains. Herbivores like Edaphosaurus, Cassia, and Cotilorhynchus fed on tough foliage or young conifer shoots. More discreet, Sphenacodon survived in the thickets or along the banks. Amphibians like Diplocaulus remained confined to the rare ponds, rivers, and lakes, where competition intensified. These water points then became convergence sites, attracting both prey and predators. During the Permian, the climates of Pangaea varied greatly. In Euramerica, a generally arid regime dominated with dune landscapes, alternating rare rains and strong evaporation. In the Russian province, marked contrasts developed between semi-arid plains and more humid areas under the orographic influence of the Urals. In the Karoo, Gondwana, conditions shifted from subtropical humid to distinctly drier by the end of the Permian, with episodes of coolness. In Cathasia, South China, a monsoon-like tropical context persisted, hot and humid, maintaining dense forests and vast wetlands. Along the central Pangean range, stretching from the Appalachians to the Urals, the relief intensified gradients, rain-soaked slopes, parched hinterlands, with strong seasonality fueling erosion and immense fluvial systems. At this time, some insects reached remarkable sizes, favored by a higher atmospheric oxygen content than today. Lake deposits have sometimes preserved fossilized wings or mouthparts, allowing for the reconstruction of their morphology and lifestyle. Species with large, membranous wings hunted over the lakes, while others hid in neighboring forests of lycophytes and tree ferns. Amphibians took advantage of these humid environments to lay their gelatinous eggs in the water. Primitive reptiles, meanwhile, began to free themselves from this constraint with the emergence of soft-shelled eggs. These deposits also reveal footprints and isolated skeletal remains, evidence of regular attendance at these shoreline environments by varied fauna. The clawed footprints suggest that several groups competed for the water's edge resources. The fossil vegetation, carbonized trunks, or trapped leaves enriches this picture. The successive layers alternate between wet periods and dry phases, indicating strong climatic variability. Sediment analysis even shows episodes of partial lake evaporation, leaving evaporate minerals, signs of occasional drying up. At the time of the formation of the central Pangean range, the climate underwent specific global influences. The atmospheric reorganization linked to the supercontinent accentuated seasonal contrasts, hot and humid summers, drier and cooler winters, with probably marked temperature differences. In the foreland basins, this translated into an alternation of very fine deposits, indicating calm and stable waters, and coarser layers, resulting from torrential rains or sudden floods. Over time, erosion leveled the summits and filled the depressions, reshaping the landscapes. On the margins, vast alluvial plains gave rise to swamps and forests, fed by sediments from the mountains. Variations in sea level, sometimes linked to Gondwana's glaciations, altered the balance between land and water. But the most striking signature remains the abundance of red molasse, conglomerates, and intermontane lakes rich in fossils, evidence of particularly active erosion and tectonics. In this setting, waterways played a central role. Rivers descended the slopes, constantly carrying new sediments that enriched the plains and sometimes reached distant deltas and lakes. In gentler terrain, rivers adopted wide meanders or branched into multiple channels. In some places, water-saturated soils preserved trunks and plant debris, whose accumulation formed layers of coal. These deposits reveal the existence of swamp forests, maintained by a temperate and humid climate during a good part of the Carboniferous before the drier shift of the Permian. In basins like the Otumwa or the Bourbonnais, fossil insects and amphibians are often accompanied by plant remains, revealing a rich ecosystem marked by water. Fern leaves, giant horsetails, or early seed plants testify to an exuberant flora, adapted to humid environments. On the drier banks, sheltered from floods, primitive reptiles laid their eggs. These reconstructed paleo environments depict a mosaic of swamps, muddy shores, and semi-aquatic forests. These are animated by large flying insects, amphibians singing in the marshes, and reptiles in search of food. The observation of these sediments and ancient fauna illuminates how the uplift of the central Pangean chain reshaped the emergent lands. Its arc shape, resulting from successive collisions, created vast Piedmont areas conducive to varied ecosystems. The red molasse reveals intense erosion and a constant influx of sediments linked to orogenic uplift. The conglomerates signal vigorous transport, while fine clays testify to calm and lacustrine intervals. The coordinated study of these deposits thus traces the geological and climatic evolution of each basin, highlighting the complexity of mechanisms specific to collision chains. From the middle to late Permian, from 273 to 252 million years ago, the climate became largely arid across Pangaea. This continental configuration favored the establishment of vast deserts, notably in the northwest of present-day Europe and the southwestern United States. The drying up of epicontinental marine basins, linked to marine regressions, transformed the landscapes into expanses of sand, dunes, and saline deposits. It is in this context that the geological formations known as Rotliegend in northwestern Europe and Cheli or Yeso in North America appeared. The dune fields, or ergs, are one of the most striking markers of these arid environments. They are immense expanses of mobile sand, sculpted by the wind into undulating reliefs. In the middle and upper Permian, they could cover hundreds of kilometers, reminiscent of large current deserts. The geological record preserves this through cross-bedding, these oblique stratifications created by dune migration. Clearly visible in the Rotliegend or Cheli, they reveal wind direction and intensity. Also distinguishable are dras, giant dunes several dozen meters high, topped with smaller forms, a sign of complex sandy systems. Between the dunes lay lower areas, called interdunes. During episodes of exceptional rain, they could transform into ephemeral lakes. The deposits that accumulated there were often rich in gypsum, a mineral formed by precipitation in sulfate-laden waters, today visible as crystals or massive layers. These traces reveal that, even in the heart of a dry and monotonous desert, occasional episodes of humidity interrupted the dryness and left durable geological signatures. Next to the vast dune fields, some epicontinental seas have left another geological signature: evaporate deposits. These rocks form when a body of brackish or marine water evaporates, leaving behind salts and minerals. In northwestern Europe, the Zechstein Formation, dated to the late Permian, is the most emblematic example. It comprises a powerful sedimentary series composed of halite, anhydrite, and various potash deposits, resulting from the evaporation of shallow marine basins partially isolated from the ocean. The Zechstein was formed by a succession of marine transgressions and regressions. During transgression phases, the sea invaded continental depressions, bringing salt-laden waters. Then, when the level dropped, the basins remained isolated under a hot and dry climate, promoting strong evaporation. As the water disappeared, the salts precipitated and accumulated in sometimes very thick layers. This process, repeated several times, produced a stacking of varied saline strata, true witnesses of the late Permian marine and climatic fluctuations. Beyond their geological interest, the desert and evaporitic deposits of the Permian shed light on life in extreme environments and their impact on biodiversity. Water was scarce, forcing organisms to adapt extensively. The vegetation consisted only of drought-resistant species known as xerophytes. They had thick cuticles to reduce transpiration and reduced leaves to limit exposure to dry air. In a few oases or more humid corridors, some plants still survived, contrasting with an essentially mineral scenery dominated by sand and rocks. The terrestrial fauna of the middle and late Permian diversified by developing adaptations to aridity. The sauropsid reptiles, ancestors of turtles, lizards, and dinosaurs, showed remarkable evolution. Among them, Captorhinus, a primitive reptile, succeeded in thriving in these hostile environments. Its solid jaws and varied dentition suggest a versatile diet ranging from tough plants to small prey. Like other sauropsids, it had scaly skin limiting water loss, a crucial advantage in areas where evaporation was intense. Burrows constituted a vital asset for animals of the Permian deserts. By digging underground, they escaped the intense daytime heat, which could reach several tens of degrees, and the sharp nighttime temperature drops. In these more stable galleries, humidity was better retained, reducing the risk of dehydration. Paleontologists have discovered fossil traces of burrows attributed to reptiles or other animals, as well as coprolites, whose study reveals valuable clues about their diet and physiology in extreme environments. Coprolites form through the mineralization of fecal matter in conditions favorable to their preservation. In the Permian, some animals taking refuge in their burrows left food remains and droppings there. When these cavities were filled with fine sediments, the absence of water circulation and soil stability facilitated their fossilization. Their study provides valuable information today about the diet of primitive sauropsid reptiles and illuminates the trophic chain that structured these ancient deserts. It is sometimes difficult to imagine how much the oceans have influenced the evolution of Earth when all continents formed Pangaea. In the Middle Permian, two immense bodies bordered this supercontinent, Panthalassa and Paleotethys. Their presence shaped life and planetary circulation. The imposing relief of Pangaea altered oceanic flows, giving rise to vast subtropical gyres, these circular loops created by prevailing winds and Earth's rotation. These movements regulated the distribution of nutrients, conditioning the abundance and diversity of marine organisms, known or still mysterious. In Panthalassa, the subtropical gyres formed vast loops of warm or cold currents, depending on latitude and the configuration of the land. These circular systems, comparable to immense whirlpools, stretched over thousands of kilometers. To this were added upwellings that nourished plankton, and by extension, fish, ammonoids, and invertebrates. These biological oases were, however, limited by the continental grasp of Pangaea, which slowed north-south circulation and concentrated oceanic flows along coastal margins. To the east of Pangaea lay the Paleotethys, often described as the ancestor of the Mesozoic Tethys. Less vast than Panthalassa, it was distinguished by its continental shelves, island arcs, and marginal basins, creating contrasting environments. Large circular currents, dictated by Earth's rotation and the shifting geography of the continents, structured the circulation there. Around volcanic archipelagos, subductions favored the upwelling of deep water rich in nutrients. These inputs stimulated marine life, allowing corals, echinoderms, and brachiopods to thrive on various substrates. Among the Permian marine ecosystems, one of the most remarkable is the Capitan Reef, located in what is now Texas and New Mexico. Now desert, the region was then covered by a warm, shallow sea, teeming with calcifying organisms. This reef, connected to the Guadalupe Range, was mainly constructed by two types of sponges: sphinctozoans, which formed interconnected chambers resembling a labyrinth, and lithistids, with siliceous skeletons consolidated by spicules. Together, they built vast calcareous structures that provided shelter to a multitude of other marine species. Alongside the sponges, calcareous green algae called dasycladales also contributed to sediment production. Enriched in calcite, their walls reinforced the reef matrix, stabilizing the seafloor and creating refuges for various species. Bryozoans, tiny colonial animals, formed fine carbonated lace that multiplied microhabitats. In this bustling environment, numerous ammonoids thrived, leaving behind their spiral shells. Also found here are fusulinids, like Parafusulina, large unicellular organisms related to Foraminifera, whose abundance indicates shallow, well-lit, nutrient-rich seas. Another significant discovery in the Capitan Formation concerns conodonts like Genogondolella. Long a mystery, these small marine organisms possessed internal elements resembling tiny teeth. Today, they are considered very primitive vertebrates, likely using their conodont apparatus for feeding or breathing. Their scientific interest is major. Each species, and the chemical state of its elements, allows for precise dating of sedimentary layers, making conodonts valuable markers of geological time. On the shallow plateaus of the Paleotethys called carbonate platforms, a wide diversity of faunas prospered. Brachiopods dominated, notably the Productida, whose shells adorned with bumps or spines allowed them to anchor in soft or muddy bottoms. The Spirophorida, on the other hand, displayed shells with marked folds, with a widened hinge, giving them a butterfly wing silhouette. Efficient filter feeders, these organisms fed on suspended organic particles and represented an essential part of Paleozoic marine biodiversity. Among the echinoderms, crinoids or sea lilies were distinguished by their flower-like appearance fixed on a stalk, sometimes capable of swimming freely. Their feather-like arms captured suspended food particles. After their death, their segmented stems and plates accumulated in the sediments, enhancing carbonate production in reef and sub-reef environments. Crinoid fossils, often shaped by time, still reveal delicate starry or circular patterns today, highly prized by collectors. Rugose and tabulate corals, typical of the Paleozoic, were already declining in the Permian. The former, or tetracorallians, displayed a fourfold symmetry, while the latter formed internal horizontal partitions. These corals, great reef builders in the Devonian, had experienced strong diversification before seeing their populations decrease. Their decline is explained by competition from other constructing organisms, climatic changes, and the evolution of ocean chemistry. Yet, in certain niches, they still persisted, coexisting with new reef sponges and calcareous algae. The exchanges between Panthalassa and the Paleotethys remained complex, as Pangaea hindered oceanic and atmospheric circulations. It is assumed, however, that marine corridors existed, linking these basins and facilitating the dispersion of species. Ammonoids, with their active swimming and buoyancy control, easily moved from one ocean to another, ensuring a broad genetic mix. Brachiopods, more fixed to the substrate, slowly colonized new environments during marine transgressions and regressions. Each advance or retreat of the sea released new shelves, where life rapidly settled and diversified. One of the major phenomena associated with supercontinents is carbon sequestration. When it rains, the water combines with atmospheric carbon dioxide to form weak acids. These acids weather rocks, and some of the carbon is then fixed in carbonates or organic matter. On a massive continent, more extensive mountain ranges promote erosion, which intensifies this process. Thus, an increasing proportion of CO2 leaves the atmosphere to become trapped in sediments or rocks, reducing its concentration in the air. Another mechanism of carbon trapping involves the burial of biological remains. Plants, algae, and other organisms, once dead, accumulated in sedimentary basins. In warm and humid climates, plant production was intense, and the absence of oxygen favored the preservation of debris. In the Carboniferous, vast marsh forests generated thick layers of coal. The more extensive a basin was, the greater the amount of trapped carbon increased. This sequestration in sediments reduced atmospheric CO2 levels and directly influenced the planetary climate. The evolution of atmospheric oxygen played a key role in terrestrial and marine ecosystems. In the Carboniferous, its content probably reached nearly 30%, well above the current level. This abundance favored the emergence of giant creatures, as their tracheal respiratory system could then efficiently support a massive body. But after this peak, the concentration of oxygen gradually declined. The retreat of forested marshes, climatic upheavals, and the reorganization of continents likely contributed to this gradual decrease. When atmospheric oxygen decreases, the metabolism of vertebrates and invertebrates must adapt. Species with more efficient respiratory or circulatory systems survive better, while others see their size or activity reduced. The evolution of lungs and oxygen transport in blood becomes a selective advantage for certain lineages. Among arthropods, this decline would explain the reduction of their gigantism. For large tetrapods, lung capacity and blood efficiency become crucial. On a continuously changing supercontinent, this selective pressure leads to a profound renewal of dominant faunas. Beyond carbon and oxygen, phosphorus and nitrogen also determine ecological balances. Phosphorus is used to build cell membranes and store energy, while nitrogen is a component of proteins. On a supercontinent, their distribution transforms. Interior plains that have become semi-arid release mineral dust or loess, carried by winds over long distances. These deposits can enrich certain regions with nutrients, but in the driest areas, nitrogen and phosphorus remain scarce, hindering plant growth and ecosystem productivity. The vast deserts associated with the stable cratons of a supercontinent often retain phosphorus and nitrogen in their soils, without effectively redistributing them to the oceans. When the wind carries these dust particles, only a small portion reaches the coasts, and even less the open sea. Yet, marine reefs constantly depend on these inputs to grow and maintain their biodiversity. In Panthalassa, the underwater topography and island arcs favored upwellings that nourished marine life. The Paleotethys, to the east of Pangaea, also benefited from such phenomena, modulated by the geography of the emergent lands. The deep-water upwellings, rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, play an essential role in the vitality of reefs. Built by corals or sponges, these structures thrive when clear, warm water is regularly enriched with nutrients. In periods of scarcity, their growth slows down and biodiversity diminishes. Conversely, sustained upwelling boosts primary productivity. Thus, plankton multiplies, feeding fish, invertebrates, and large predators. In these active oceanic zones, each link in the food chain benefits from this influx, creating true oases of life. Between 273 and 252 million years ago, Earth witnessed the emergence and diversification of therapsids, terrestrial vertebrates closely related to the ancestors of mammals. Several of them already bore traits foreshadowing the mammalian lineage. To grasp their importance, these creatures must be placed in the context of the Middle and Late Permian world. It was a supercontinent in formation, dominated by hot and dry climates, occasionally punctuated by more humid areas. In this setting, therapsids exhibited remarkable adaptation strategies, both anatomically and in their dietary habits. They thus opened a decisive chapter in terrestrial evolution. Among the therapsids, the Dinocephalia, literally called terrible heads, form one of the most impressive branches of the Middle Permian. They are divided into two main groups, carnivores and herbivores. The formidable Antiosaurus, several meters long, possessed a massive skull and sharp dentition. Its jaw, supported by powerful musculature, made it a predator capable of attacking large prey. Fossils suggest it reigned at the top of the food chain, dominating the subtropical basins of its time. Alongside the carnivores, some Dinocephalia adopted a herbivorous diet. Tapinocephalus, discovered in the Karoo region, is a striking example. With thick cranial bones and a massive body, it likely moved slowly, grazing on the tough vegetation of the semi-arid plains of Gondwana. Despite their imposing appearance, these herbivores played a key role. They regulated plant growth and contributed to the balance of the local flora. Thus, the morphological diversity of the Dinocephalia already opens the vast panorama of Permian therapsids. A little later, the Dicynodonts, a major subgroup of therapsids, appeared. Their name, two-dog teeth, refers to the upper tusks, often the only remnants of their dentition. Among the best known are Endothiodon, Dicynodon, and later, Daptocephalus. Stocky, with a short snout, these animals had a beak covered by a cornified layer called the keratinized rostrum. This tool functioned like a blade, allowing them to cut and effectively grind tough plants. Another key adaptation of Dicynodonts lies in their palatal microdentition. These are tiny teeth arranged on the roof of the palate, used to grind tough plants before digestion. This innovation, combined with their keratinized beak, allowed them to thrive even in Permian environments subject to drought. Their global success is evidenced by fossils found in Europe, Asia, and across all of Gondwana, from Africa to Australia. Their ability to efficiently exploit local flora and withstand heat or lack of water explains their remarkable expansion. At the transition from the Middle to the Late Permian, a new lineage of therapsids emerged, the Gorgonopsians. Their name, inspired by the Gorgons of Greek mythology, aptly reflects their formidable appearance. These hunters possessed elongated skulls and impressive teeth, true weapons for tearing apart their prey. Among them, Inostrancevia, discovered in Russia, could exceed 3 meters in length. Its massive upper canines made it a formidable killer, capable of dominating the vertebrate fauna of its environment. Within these same Gorgonopsian communities was also Sauroctonus, a predator sharing with Inostrancevia, a skull organization known as theriodont, literally beast tooth. This arrangement already hinted at a jaw with differentiated teeth, some specialized for piercing or slicing, which would later be found in some primitive mammals. This innovation made the bite more effective and the cutting of prey more precise. The Gorgonopsians thus occupied the niche of superpredators of the late Permian, coexisting with other therapsids of varied diets. Next comes a group even closer to the mammalian lineage, the first cynodonts. Their name literally means dog teeth, referring to the canine appearance of their dentition. But what makes them truly fascinating are their innovations in chewing and hearing. Compared to older mammalian reptiles, their lower jaw evolves. The dental bone that bears the teeth takes a dominant position, while other bones like the articular and quadrate regress and gradually migrate to the middle ear. This transformation already hints at the fine chain of auditory ossicles in modern mammals, capable of refining sound perception. To illustrate these early cynodonts, we can mention Carasognathus from the late Permian and Procenosuchus, present towards the end of this period. The first, small in size, probably fed on insects or prey suited to its limited bite. The latter already shows better terrestrial adaptation, more powerful jaw, differentiated dentition, and increased activity. These primitive cynodonts mark a decisive step towards the mammalian lineage, accumulating essential innovations for future evolution. Ecologically, these different branches of therapsids coexist in environments subject to strong climatic variations. Continental basins, often hot and dry, favor fossilization in red deposits. Elsewhere, a few seasonal wet areas maintain flora adapted to drought. The scarcity of forests and temperatures frequently exceeding 35 degrees Celsius select species resistant to water shortage. Dicynodonts survived with little. Gorgonopsians and other carnivores, on the other hand, hunted mobile prey around the scarce water sources. The geographical distribution of these therapsids reflects the slow continental drift. Their fossils appear in Russia, southern Africa, China, but also in South America and Asia. Specialists see this as proof that the forming Pangaea offered vast terrestrial and semi-arid corridors, facilitating their dispersion. The study of the geological layers containing these fossils, dated by radiometric analyses on zircon or mica crystals, confirms that the Permian was their true golden age, spanning several million years. These animals remain essential for understanding the transition to modern forms. At the time of Pangaea, aquatic life unfolded in an exceptional setting. Lakes, rivers, and shallow seas along the continents housed a great diversity of fish and amphibians. Variations in sea level and temporary connections between basins promoted faunal mixing, allowing some species to spread widely. This world was marked by a warm, sometimes arid climate, where ecosystems oscillated between humid marshes and seasonal droughts. Among the fish, the actinopterygians dominated freshwater habitats. The genus Aduella, with a spindle-shaped body and light scales, illustrates this adaptation to lakes and swamps. Their fins, supported by fine, bony structures, ensured agility to catch small invertebrates. Across Pangaea, they took advantage of salinity variations to colonize estuaries and spawning areas. This ecological flexibility paved the way for the extraordinary diversity of modern fish, heirs to these ancestors, resilient to rapid changes. Alongside them lived the Sarcopterygians, lobed-finned fish like the famous coelacanths. Some, such as Mawsonia, had sturdy fins whose skeleton foreshadowed the future limbs of tetrapods. Many frequented stagnant or shallow waters and breathed partly in open air, using organs akin to primitive lungs. This ability allowed them to survive oxygen shortages and droughts. By exploring these marginal environments, they expanded their range, testifying to the remarkable adaptability of the Pangaean era. Lungfish, or dipnoans, complete this aquatic tableau. Thanks to their rudimentary lungs, they could breathe at the surface when waters dried up. Dipterus, more ancient, illustrates this adaptation, soon followed by forms close to Ceratodus that thrived in the Triassic. Their most effective weapon remained estivating. Buried in mud, they survived droughts and revived when rains returned. This strategy symbolizes the remarkable resilience of the Pangaean aquatic fauna. Amphibians, notably temnospondyls, like Archegosaurus and Archaeops, reigned among freshwater predators. Their large size and powerful jaws allowed them to hunt fish and small vertebrates. Some even retained gills into adulthood, a sign of their close ties to water. Anthraxosaurs, close to future reptiles, also frequented these swamps and sometimes ventured onto the banks. In these bustling environments, the abundance of invertebrates and young fish was enough to sustain a high density of predators. The red fluviolacustrine niches refer to continental deposits rich in iron oxide, widely spread during the Permian and Triassic. These floodplains alternated between floods depositing red sediments and droughts aerating the soil. Amphibians found ideal zones there to lay eggs in temporary ponds, while lungfish were better at resisting drying out. These hydrological variations favored a great diversity of species. Some occupied the remaining channels, others survived in estivation. At sea off the coast of Pangaea, invertebrates flourished. Ammonoidea, close relatives of today's nautilus, thrived with their coiled shells and flotation chambers. In the early Triassic, Paraceratites illustrates their astonishing diversity. The more ancient nautiloids shared the space with bivalves like Chloraea, which appeared at the beginning of the Triassic. Late brachiopods, such as the Terebratulida, attached themselves to the rocks, contributing to the richness of the seabed. Together, these organisms filtered plankton or consumed organic particles, occupying a key place in the food chain. Brachiopods, sometimes confused with bivalves, were distinguished by their mode of attachment and their lopophore, a filtering organ that captured suspended particles. In the Terebratulida, the smooth shells opened to allow this device to pass. Some species formed real living carpets on the rocks, clearing the water and promoting other organisms. Bivalves like Chloraea occupied shallow waters, feeding on sediments. Together, brachiopods and bivalves played a central role in the ecological balance of the Pangaean seas. These communities formed a dynamic and resilient whole, whose legacy still lives on in today's animal diversity. We are now at the end of the Permian, about 252 million years ago. The supercontinent Pangaea then united all the land masses, but both seas and continents underwent profound upheavals. This period culminated in the end, Permian crisis, the greatest extinction ever known on Earth. Geological records reveal that at this time, more than 90% of marine species and a large proportion of terrestrial organisms disappeared. Scientists explain this catastrophe by several factors, primarily the volcanic activity in Siberia. There, the traps poured out immense lava flows over thousands of square kilometers, releasing colossal amounts of gases that disrupted the Earth's climate and atmosphere. In the aftermath of the Permian extinction, the Earth entered a scorching and unstable early Triassic. The Pangaean mega-monsoon alternated brief storms with long droughts, shaping red plains, ephemeral rivers, and shifting dunes. In this harsh landscape, a few pioneering plants, Pleuramia and Voltzialian conifers, colonized poor soils and temporary shores, creating rare refuges. On the faunal side, reconstruction relied on robust survivors, dicynodonts, notably Lystrosaurus, and small cynodonts like Thrinaxodon, capable of effective thermoregulation and active in cooler hours. Already, archosauriforms like Proterosuchus and then Erythrosuchus exploited water sources, heralding a future dominance of lineages leading to dinosaurs. By the Middle Triassic, life resumed in earnest. In the Tethyan Sea, scleractinian corals inaugurated new reefs through symbiosis with photosynthetic algae. Marine reptiles diversified. On the continents, pseudosuchians gained enhanced locomotor abilities, while the first dinosauromorphs laid the anatomical foundations of future dinosaurs. Experimental forms like Odontoceles illuminate the origins of turtles. In the background, Pangaea nevertheless began to crack. Nascent rifts in North America and Morocco, diffuse volcanism, early basins trapping ashes, pollens, footprints, and skeletons, a precious record of this diversification. In the late Triassic, the heralds of fragmentation became apparent. The large rift basins, such as the Newark Basin, alternate between sandstones and clays, dictated by an extreme climate governed by the mega monsoon. In the sky, the first pterosaurs like Eudimorphodon appear. On the ground, early dinosaurs such as Eoraptor coexist with tiny mammalia forms. Most notably, the Central Atlantic magmatic province injects dikes and lava flows, releasing enormous volumes of gas. This volcanism accompanies the extinction at the end of the Triassic. Numerous amphibians and non-dinosaur reptiles decline, while certain dinosaur lineages, better adapted, settle permanently at the dawn of the Jurassic. The fracturing then accelerates. The nascent Atlantic will soon separate Africa, Europe, and North America. Overall, Pangaea imposed a unique planetary framework for nearly 160 million years, a vast continental block promoting intercontinental species dispersal while exacerbating climatic contrasts between humid coasts and torrid interiors. It channeled winds and currents, imposed a mega monsoon regime, concentrated erosion towards immense basins, and dictated major evolutionary trajectories. Its breakup will reshape the oceans, fragment the biotas, and pave the way for an archipelago biodiversity that will dominate the Mesozoic. In this way, Pangaea is not just a tectonic episode, it is the framework of a world that unravels while giving rise to the next.